I was top damage, and we still lost. What are these orbs for in Temple of Katmogu? What do you mean there's objectives in my BGs? A common misconception found in BGs is that high damage numbers means that you're a better player. I think this idea generally comes from min-maxers that PvE a lot. It's actually an idea that makes sense in PvE. Boss kills are a function of whether or not your team reaches its numerical output goals while being able to do the mechanics of the boss fight. However, a focus on damage numbers can actually hurt you in PvP. To some extent, low damage numbers given ideal circumstances can be an indicator of you not knowing how to play your class. Most of the time, you shouldn't nearly be reaching your maximum DPS numbers in any given BG. If you are, it's likely another indicator that you either don't know your class, i.e. you haven't found the CC spells yet, or you're PvPing with total disregard to objectives. Likely, it's a combination of the both. Best case scenario in a team fight, you want to hit high enough numbers that your team's combined damage output is able to burn through targets while putting out enough CC that enemy healers can't keep up with you. And your own healers don't die due to not being able to get away from demon hunters and rogues in your flanks. That said, there are a number of circumstances where your overall damage numbers won't really tell you anything useful. Here's a few reasons why your damage may be low. 1. You're not a DPS class in the first place. If you're a healer, or you're a tank, even though some tanks can be spec'd in such a way that they put out some pretty good damage, and generally they're the first ones into a fight, unless they're carrying the flag, you're just not outfitted for the numbers. 2. You've been sitting a base. You haven't been around to hit anything. If there's nothing to be hit, you're not going to hit the numbers. 3. You're topping CC charts. Within reason. CC is a huge thing in PvP, and I do say within reason because there are circumstances where you're doing more CC than you ought to. And this is a hard thing to really say because it does vary from class to class. An Affliction Warlock who's supposed to be putting out dots and channeling and doing lots of damage in general across the board could put out a few fears here and there, but if they're just hitting the fear button on cooldown over and over and over and over again, they're really not playing to their maximum efficiency. 4. I mentioned base sitting, but there are other roles in an BG or RBG that you could be filling that don't involve you sitting in a team fight all that often. If you are part of the stealth team, for instance, or if you've got some sort of special assignment as part of your team strat, you might not be around the team fight again to put out the numbers. 5. Strat calling. I'm putting this in here mainly because I know from experience that strat calling, especially if you're new to it, can take up some of your attention. And I do know, as a matter of numbers, that when I go into a BG and I'm just another soldier in the fight, and I don't have to call strat, I don't have to lead, I do tend to hit higher numbers because my focus, my attention isn't divided so much between the mini-map and my cooldowns and the targets and the team fight, etc, etc, etc. Once you've been doing RBGs for a while and you've been a strat caller in those RBGs and you've kind of learned the strats and you've learned to divide your attention, I'm not saying that this distraction will ever go away for strat callers, but it should be minimized at least a little bit. I know that over time I've been able to sort of wire my brain a little bit better to sort of watch the mini-map in my periphery almost constantly throughout the BG and keep in my mind sort of a mental map of where people are, what needs to happen, and guessing where the team is, or where the opposite team is going to be pushing next. That does take bandwidth mentally, and so it does sometimes reflect in numbers, but over time I think that this one should get better. 6. Team fights are short and you don't have much time to burst, or you don't have the spec to burst. If, again, I'll go back to Affliction Warlocks, where there's a lot of spread damage, a lot of dots. We don't have really great burst single target. And the nature of dots is it's damage over time. It takes the time for the damage to happen. And if you're just steamrolling the other team, if they're just falling over dead, you don't get the time and you don't hit those numbers. But in that case, hopefully nobody's complaining about your numbers because you just won the game. So those are 6 reasons why you may not be hitting top numbers, and yet it's still reasonable. When I'm running a BG and I get a new pug in my group that's toting how much damage he does or is going to do, this is always a red flag to me. I'm not saying that as a leader you should immediately toss that pug out. All I'm saying is that many players get a bad case of this tunnel vision, where they focus on damage numbers in BGs, and in order to do that, they will often neglect CC, objectives, specific target calls, and even the strats that the team is calling. Give them a chance, let them prove their worth, and see what they do. See how they do, but keep a wary eye on them. If you do have to throw them out because it's just not working out, I just want to give you a bit of a warning. Many of the worst offenders that have been of this obsession with numbers have been told that it's an unhealthy obsession over and over and over again, and it just doesn't sink in. They need that visual gratification of seeing their name at the top of some list because of their own pride or something. The day that you've got to kick one of these guys out of your group, be prepared to deal with some attitude. In my cases, I'm usually whispering people that that I want to come back, that we're going to be kicking someone out. It may not go well. Be prepared to maybe drop the call and start up a new curse call, or even rebuild the group sometimes if it gets bad and they keep on trolling you. So there's some commentary on high DPS numbers and how you should treat them, and how you as a leader can deal with people who go a little bit overboard on that. Question for the comments: what other misconceptions do PvEers bring to the PvP arena? Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you in another video next week. Am I like the only one that keeps floss like within arm's reach when he eats popcorn? Is that weird?